Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of Reanimated. This is episode 87 on this fine Sunday. I am here with my wonderful co-host, Stuart Tiffin, and I'm H.A. Conrad, as always. This episode is brought to you by Squarespace. The all-in-one platform makes it easy for you to build your own website, build it beautiful. We use it here at Reanimated. It's very easy to use. Also, lots of different things so you can customize it to your liking. If you're a first-time user, our friends at Squarespace have given us an offer code to share with you. It's zombie, not case-sensitive. Throw that in there, and they'll give you 10% off your first purchase. So thanks again, Squarespace, for your ongoing sponsorship and support of this show. Hello, Stuart. How are you doing?
Greetings, AJ. Good. How's it going with you?
Great. So we don't have too much in the realm of news today, although here in my area, they had another zombie walk at Asbury Park, which is in New Jersey. And this is the zombie walk that a few years ago actually broke the world record in terms of like the gathering. So I think time is, the results are, I think, still out yet for this one to see how many it gathers. However, they always have a lot of really interesting costumes and things like that of, the usual variety that you would expect, but people seem to go all out for this one. So I put an article in the show notes, so if you want to throw that in there, people can take a look at some of the creativity that people sort of put forth for this. This is also the same weekend as Comic-Con in New York, so I'm wondering if that either people overlapped or they, chose one or the other, because there's usually a pretty large Walking Dead contingent at Comic-Con every year, New York Comic-Con. Yep. Sadly, I did not get to go this year, but I have actually seen a lot of really awesome costumes and cosplayers on the trains. Last night, there was an amazing Link person, not a zombie Link, but just Link, and that was pretty cool. So, yeah, so not too much, although I expect as Halloween nears, we will see a lot more. But, yeah, it's pretty short news cycle today. But what are we reviewing today?
We are reviewing a different kind of zombie film called Cooties.
All right. You want to kick it off?
Sure. So we've talked about this a couple times when we saw the initial trailer, and then I feel like the major pull to this movie is its cast. So just to run that down real quick, it came out last year, or it's billed as being a 2014 movie, but I think it was just released direct to video on demand not too long ago. And we've got, so the cast is Elijah Wood, Rainn Wilson, Allison Pill, who you might recognize from Network, that HBO show about the news, Jack McBrayer from 30 Rock, Nazim Pedrad, and Jorge Garcia, and then a few other people who are less recognizable but very good. Mm-hmm. Jorge Garcia was Hurley on Lost, and Nazim Pedrad was a cast member on SNL until like last year. And I've been waiting to see her do more stuff because I think she's just naturally hilarious. So we've got a lot of funny people on this cast, and then not even counting some of the guys who I'd never heard of who were also hilarious, like Ian Brennan, who plays the vice principal, and Lee Whannell, who plays Doug, the really creepy weird guy.
Yes, there is. He is super, super creepy.
I mean, just insane amounts of talent in that cast right there. So I guess you can hear where I'm coming down on this movie. I mean, it's actually more of a mixed bag. I think this movie wins at comedy. It's an hilarious movie, but of course it's a horror comedy, which means just like with Shaun of the Dead, they have to take a turn at some point and get a little sad and get a little bit introspective, but I still think overall it's a winner.
Right. And Lee Whannell is one of the writers as well, correct?
He does have a lot of writing credits, so I assumed, and Ian Brennan, I think, also.
Yeah, so they were both intimately involved in many aspects of this film. Yeah. And yeah, you're right, it's one of those darker comedies, as you would imagine it would be, given that there are zombie children involved. My favorites.
God, yeah. What a challenge.
That was pretty challenging. There's some other moments that I'll talk about in a second that were super challenging for me to watch. But yeah, like pretty amazing cast and definitely, there was some, there was definitely a level of cheesiness in this film, but I think it was kind of to be expected. This got actually not, it got very mixed reviews by a lot of people.
Yeah, 38% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is pretty low for us.
It's pretty low, but compared to other films that we have seen with similar ratings, I was pleasantly surprised. So,
absolutely, yeah. I don't think it deserves that low of a
no,
of a
I
rating.
agree. So, yeah, So, I will tell you that, and I also thought the effects were fantastic in this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It has sort of that. I think you're correct. Like it has that Shaun of the Dead feel, so that the effects are really good, but there is just a level. I don't want to call it slapstick, but that's kind of there's a level of comedy that they have with it and with some of the effects. So they're disgusting, but they're also like, okay, like that's kind of funny that they did it that way, like kind of hitting all the notes I feel for a movie of this nature. So, so I thought overall a very good effort. And I actually really enjoyed watching this, despite the fact that I'm terrified. The whole, possessing zombie children thing, I really, really don't like.
Oh, yeah.
So there were definitely parts of this where I was just like, oh my God. But overall, I had fun watching this and watching like the different actors work together.
Did you feel on any level that this is a movie written by people who hate kids?
Not necessarily by people who hate kids, but I definitely think it's definitely playing upon that aspect of like the kids are taking over and like kind of that, I don't know, like that fear of being attacked by children. Definitely.
Not too many people I would think have that fear, that specific fear. But
I think I think if you're working in, schools, daycares, doing whatever, like if you live in Park Slope and you're kind of outnumbered, maybe I can absolutely see that being a dynamic that you're going to exploit, which is what they did here. And I think that may have been the root of some of the issues people had with this. I was seeing a lot of comments. People were very upset at the way children were portrayed in this, which it's
overwhelmingly negative. There's two children who are not evil, or who are not made to be that way.
Right. But I also don't think that. I mean, there's zombie films and horror films in general are not necessarily politically correct, and this is definitely not politically correct.
Yeah, or optimistic, right? I mean, but there are some other things that make you think about it, like the fact that two of the kid zombies are named Racer and Patriot, which I thought was hilarious. Just that they're making fun of the insane things that people are naming their children. And I'm one to talk since my kid also has a weird name, but it's at least a family name, so I'm secure in that. But I just thought that was pretty funny. They're also just making fun of parents with the woman who's taking her kid to school and making him wear a helmet. Just because, and you hear her saying like playgrounds are a war zone or something, and so it's not like out of medical needs. It's just that she's one of those kind of parents, and then the other mom is cursing at her son.
Yeah, they're pretty much showing every stereotype that you could see, both in the children and the parents, as well as the teachers, for that matter. So, I don't think that they really pull their punches with any segment of the population here, but they really take a lot of it out on the kids. I do think that it's interesting that this version of the virus. I mean, the other piece of this is how it was contracted. So that was, also playing upon this other thing. There's a lot of things that you see a lot of. So it's like helicopter parenting, education in schools, like how kids run wild, and then the whole thing about nutrition in schools and all of that. And so the mechanism by which this virus is sort of introduced to the population is via infected chicken nuggets. And I will tell you, the opening scene where they show how the chicken nuggets are made, I
They're
had
basically trying to make vegetarians with that scene.
I had to actually turn away, and this is coming from somebody who watches a lot of horror films, and I actually found a lot of those scenes, that those opening scenes, to be a lot more cringeworthy than anything else that was in the film. I don't
The
know what that
bites,
says about me,
the
but it
bite.
was. Oh,
That's really bad. Yeah,
yeah.
and I feel like other than the bite and that one nugget they follow through
Oh
the
gosh, it
I
was
feel like most
rough.
of that footage is just straight up not normal slaughterhouse footage. That
Yes,
is
I
just
know,
normal
and
stuff.
it was really, that's I think what made it so cringeworthy and upsetting for me.
Mhm.
But yeah, that was effective, definitely effective. Um, so and I thought that the storytelling of this very totally playing upon your tropes and like every single trope, which was pretty awesome. So
And yet not I guess yeah, a lot of people are playing right down the line, but the assistant principal guy is like a funny mixture of characteristics where he's on the one hand, trying to be very cool, on the other hand, he's a total doofus. Uh,
but a control freak as well.
yeah. I kind of wished he hadn't died so fast. I wanted him to
Yeah,
have more screen time.
me too.
Um, Nazim Pedrad's character, who's like a gun nut and doesn't even let Elijah Wood talk to her without giving him a speech on how if he
Yeah.
tries to rape her, she will, defend herself or whatever. Her character is fantastic, and I would say not necessarily a trope because I don't know that I've ever seen a female character portrayed. Maybe, but it's like not feminazi, and I don't know. I'm not sure where that character is coming from, but I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I don't know either, but she also doesn't die, which you kind of would anticipate that she would.
Being that unlikable, you're right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and so they didn't go there, and they also didn't go there. Like, there's a lot of moments when you see characters and you think that they're going to die, and they make, and we've sometimes seen the miraculous recoveries, but not to this extent, which I thought was interesting.
that yeah. At that point, they're just
Being
being
silly,
over the top. Yeah,
but that was all right too.
yeah.
And they definitely play a lot with like the different places and the different people and the different things that you see with kids, so the playground, the cafeteria, the auditorium, and that kind of thing is all very present here. I also got the sense that this must have been a lot of fun for everybody to film. It seemed like they were all having a lot of fun with it, including the kids, the zombie kids. So I thought that was really great. And then also the whole funhouse thing.
That was honestly after they cut the power. I didn't enjoy every element of this movie, but yeah, the what you were saying about the kids looking like they enjoyed themselves. What I was also thinking about is that the kid, like the acting is good. It's believable. Maybe all they have to do is growl and run around threateningly, but there's no. I don't remember seeing any kid like in the corner of the frame who didn't look like they were committed to the scene.
No,
You
they
know,
all did. And they, especially with the scenes where they're trying to overrun the adults, I thought were really effective and good. Anything where the adults were cornered by them was good. Agreed. I thought that the power going off was kind of annoying and silly.
I
Because it's
just
sort
used
of,
that as that was from that point on. It tried to get a little serious for a while, and
yeah.
my attention did wane a little bit.
Yeah, they could have done a little bit better with editing. I also saw that they had changed the ending, but I was having a hard time finding out what the original ending was supposed to be. So I'm not sure exactly what that would have entailed.
Like the whole Danville segment, probably.
Yeah, probably that part, but it apparently that's something that they decided to switch around. But I overall I thought that this was great. It's interesting that they chose to just. I don't mind that they put it direct to like streaming and that kind of thing, and you can just buy on demand. We've talked about this sort of the differences in releasing films and distribution and things like that. But this seems also like a film that might have done pretty well if they had done a limited release around Halloween or something like that, right?
Yeah,
So
potentially.
that's kind of like an interesting decision for them to have made. I didn't. Again, I did not. I was not as bothered apparently as some people were by this film, and I just thought that they were trying to have a lot of fun. It doesn't reach the levels of Shaun of the Dead by any means, but I just thought it was overall a pretty decent effort compared to, and it's an independent film too. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Shaun of the Dead, I think, had a bit of a tighter script and
Right.
probably more jokes per minute than this did. But this one had some really good moments. It's just that they kind of petered out in like probably the third act. Now, the third act, there were a lot of jokes too at the end. And I honestly, I like the way this movie ended.
Yeah, I mean they left it kind of open.
It was abrupt and open ended, and I enjoyed that.
All right, I just found some just more. Apparently, the original ending was pretty bleak, so my guess is that they didn't let them get away initially. So that is probably where they went with it. So
Well, it's a tough call. I mean, either you get everybody killed, or they win the day, like a la Shaun of the Dead, or it's going to be some sort of like limbo, like the Walking Dead universe, where that's still pretty bleak.
right.
I
But
feel
I
like
w-
those are.
But I
Go
was
ahead.
but I was okay with what they did with this. I liked what they did with this. So whatever made them make that decision, I think that was fine.
So, how did you like the character of Doug, the weird teacher, who was kind of there to do exposition?
He was there, and I enjoy. There were moments when he was so gross and disgusting, like when he's sort of shoveling through. I did love the idea that he is this character that has just way too much information, and the other cast members call him on that, which I think is pretty funny. Like, how do you know all this? Like, he basically has, and he's doing dissections with his hands. Like,
He's "I
not
was
with
wearing
any,
gloves."
not with, I know, not with anything else other than his hands. And so there's just no way he could have this information. So I really enjoyed that part because it was just totally making fun of itself
Yeah.
and basically making fun of itself and making it very clear that that's what they were doing. So I enjoyed that a lot. I thought that he had a good delivery. So that was okay. They took that joke a little bit. I feel like they just overdid it a little too much. And as you said, there were moments in this film when I was just kind of like, okay, let's move it along. And I think you're right. It's definitely after the power goes out. They could have done without, I think, a huge chunk of that. I don't know that this film needed to be an hour and a half long. Probably you could have done just over an hour with no problem. Most of it being cut out in that particular section.
Yeah.
But
I don't know if-
I don't know. What did you think of him?
I really enjoyed it. Yeah, sometimes it was a little too nutso. Like, yeah, and maybe there was a little bit too much of him playing that role, but it was very funny up to a point. I also kind of enjoyed the love triangle with Elijah Wood, Rainn Wilson, and the girl whose name I forget already, Alison Pill. It felt natural. I mean, maybe Rainn Wilson being her boyfriend is
Right.
unnatural, but the way that it played out it felt adult. It didn't feel like stereotypical in these sorts of scenarios. So I like the way that was handled.
I found this to be generally entertaining. I really liked it, just in terms of like where they were going with it. Do I think that the script could have been tighter? Probably, but it didn't really bother me that much. This would just be fun, and I honestly, although I think some people, because the effects were very good, there were certainly, for me anyway, there were disgusting moments where I was like, wow, they did such a good job there with the bites and the makeups and makeup and sort of like some of the corpses and things like that. That I think those people with weaker stomachs might have a problem with this, but I don't, I think this could be a fun Halloween horror type film for more than just zombie fans to watch. But perhaps those people would not enjoy it quite as much as I did.
There's one scene in the playground early on when the blonde kid decides to start infecting everybody, where it's like one shot or
It's
one
great.
take,
I thought it was
and
fantastic. Did you not
I
like
don't know.
that?
I loved it. I just don't even know how they managed to do it. Like
I
he
know.
is shot running past people and swiping them, and then they start bleeding and are cut. And these are other children,
Hmm.
and it was like I wonder what the while I was watching, I was like wondering what his direction was. It was just like, okay, press your fingers onto them. Don't actually scratch them, and we will just put the cuts in post or something.
Yeah,
But
no, I thought it was
it looks
great.
fantastic. Yeah, it looks like he's actually cutting these other children.
And
And so,
it was a great way to get the action moving very quickly.
oh yeah, it
So
definitely was.
that was very cool. I love that.
Hmm.
And such a great shot too. Oh,
Yeah, yeah, that kid's creepy looking.
yes.
The death of, the kid. I think it's him actually who gets
Head bashed, yep.
his head bashed in by Rainn Wilson. Very intense.
Yes.
And obviously they played that up like that was they kill plenty of children in this film, which is a difficult thing I think to handle.
Well, and I think, and I can absolutely see that being the piece where people are going to be unhappy
Yeah,
about that. It's not just people's aversion to zombie children like I have. It is hard to watch that, and
yeah,
there's like babies that get infected in this film.
yeah.
So, and that's like the first real scene where you see, and it's an adult taking out a kid. Like that's tough.
But I feel like they treated it appropriately.
Oh, they did.
Where everybody just stops what they're doing, and Rainn Wilson has to go take a timeout also after he's
Right.
bashed this kid's head in with a fire extinguisher. But it's hard to recover the momentum
After that, yep.
of the comedy after that, yeah, because you're like, holy crap, what am I looking at? So I think like the subject matter might have kneecapped their efforts. I mean, they do get back to some funny moments, but it's kind of tough after that for
Well,
sure.
I kind of feel like in a film like that, and what Shaun of the Dead did, and I think it's difficult to find that balance, and that I think that that's what was difficult here and why they lost momentum. There's you can't have characters that you've become, and even though we didn't know too much about this kid other than that he was kind of annoying and horrible from what we saw, he was a little bit of a bully when we saw him at the beginning, but in Shaun of the Dead they don't really, they give you a gradual lead up to characters that getting eaten or dying or becoming undead. And this is very abrupt and weird, and he's one of the many, and they've been kind of running. I think you kind of have to either avoid doing sort of a direct confrontation like this, which I think would be hard to do because they're all being chased around the school. At some point, you're going to have somebody take out a character, and it's going to be a kid. And I just think it was a difficult task to undertake in this type of a film.
So, what do you think was the writer's goal when they cast the two kids who don't get infected, like the nice kid with diabetes and the girl who's going through menses,
I
as
know.
Creepy Doug calls it? Like, are they just seriously to ground us and be like, okay, not all children are evil?
I think
Because they don't do
I think that
much.
they are, but they don't do much with them, which is sort of what is like they're just window dressing or background noise. And one of them provides a little bit of the crises where the kid is in like having a little bit of it, like he needs to eat sugar or something because he's having like diabetic shock. But they don't do enough with them to make them a valuable part of the film and to have them counteract what you're seeing in terms of the bad behavior of the other kids. So that's a little bit, I thought that was kind of odd. Because, and I was actually thinking of this while watching the film, thinking of different ensemble films, and I kept coming back to Shaun of the Dead. And every single person in that cast or in the main cast had an active role. And they, like, a lot of them didn't here. It was mainly the adults, right? So
Yeah,
it was kind of strange.
the funniest time that the film deals with cast members or people on the screen who you don't know what they're doing there. The woman who gets dragged into the closet.
I was about to say it, but that was a funny way of doing that. She's
Right,
just
it was
this random. It was like,
hilarious.
who was that woman anyway?
Who was she? I don't know. Yeah, that was great. It was just like the perfect red shirt moment, and then they just run away.
Right.
But yeah, the kids. Who knows if they'd had an expanded role in one, another draft of the film, and then when they're running out of the school, it's almost like they're the two that they all need to protect because they're the most vulnerable. And although actually the girl isn't really, she's just like the teachers. She'll just get eaten. But Calvin, the boy, is at risk of being turned, and so he's like the only unturned potential zombie
Right.
that we see in the film.
Right.
So yeah, I'm not really sure where they were hoping to go with that, but it was I don't know, maybe just diversifies the tableau. So the one of the issues that I did somewhat have with this is there's two things that kind of are pet peeves of mine in terms of TV or movies, and one is when you write a script and you have one of your characters be a person who's trying to write scripts. That really bothers me because. And also another one of my pet peeves, and maybe this comes back to our recent reviews of Fear the Walking Dead. I don't really like it when TV or movies are set in Los Angeles because it kind of feels lazy on some level.
Yeah.
Just because it's like, oh, let's just do it in our backyard, low threshold. With Elijah Wood's character, who's an author or a struggling writer, it is actually kind of funny because he's terrible, and like he's obviously writing a ripoff of Christine, and Rainn Wilson calls him on it really quickly. And the fact that he's still like trying to write down notes for his novel in the middle of the crisis, and people are like, "What the hell is wrong with you?" So I actually did kind of enjoy that, but usually I find that to be kind of a grating casting or not script decision.
I just totally as an aside, I also love the little offhand comment from Rainn Wilson about hobbits crawling around,
Yes.
which is pretty good. I don't know. That's
Yeah.
I always love those little meta references that are just entertaining.
Yeah, that was perfect.
But no, I thought that was a little forced, but I thought that they dealt with that better than they normally do.
It's kind of interesting to see Elijah Wood not being a kid.
Right.
He's still a little guy, but he's like growing up. I don't know. That's not important here.
He's all grown up. Is that what
He's
you're
all
saying?
grown up. He's all grown up. Yeah. So I think that this was a good film. I think that our listeners who enjoyed Shaun of the Dead should watch this, and who didn't enjoy Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah.
So I think that this is. I think we're giving it a Reanimated 2 desiccated thumbs up.
Right. Except if you have problems with chickens and making of chicken nuggets and you don't like zombie children, I'd take a pass on it.
Yeah, and child murder. If you're not into child murder, maybe you don't like it.
Did we talk about the Goodnight Mommy trailer?
You've tried to get me to watch it, but then your description of it made me too scared, so I have not.
Well, I'm not going to actually watch the film. I'm just, trying to push you to watch the scary trailer. It just seems to be a lot of evil children out there, apparently.
Fantastic.
Yes. But 'tis the season, Halloween, so, so that wraps up our review of Cooties for this time. For next time, please join us when we discuss the film Bloodsucking Bastards, which I am very interested to discuss with you, Stuart. It looks like an interesting little flick. Wouldn't you say?
Oh, yeah. Fran Kranz, big fan.
Indeed. So until next time, ciao.
Bye-bye.